Now the swindlers asked for more money, silk and gold cloth, which they required for weaving. They kept everything for themselves, and not a thread came near the loom, but they continued to work at the empty looms. Soon afterwards the emperor sent another honest courtier to the weavers to see how they were getting on, and if the cloth was nearly finished. Like the old minister, he looked and looked, but could see nothing, as there was nothing to be seen. "Is it not a beautiful piece of cloth?" asked the two swindlers, showing and explaining the magnificent pattern, which however did not exist. "I am not stupid," said the man. "It is therefore my good appointment for which I am not fit. It is very strange, but I must not let anyone know it." And he praised the cloth, which he did not see, and expressed his joy at the beautiful colors and the fine pattern. "It is very excellent," he said to the emperor. Everybody in the town talked about the precious cloth. At last the emperor wished to see it himself while it was still on the loom. With a number of courtiers, including the two who had already been there, he went to the two clever swindlers, who now worked as hard as they could, but without using any thread. "Is it not magnificent?" said the two old statesmen who had been there before. "Your Majesty must admire the color and patterns." And then they pointed to the empty looms, for they imagined the others could see the cloth. "What is this?" thought the emperor. "I do not see anything at all. That is terrible. Am I stupid? Am I unfit to be emperor? That would indeed be the most dreadful thing that could happen to me." "Really," he said, turning to the weavers, "your cloth has the most gracious approval." And he nodded contentedly. He looked at the empty looms, for he did not like to say that he saw nothing. All his attendants who were with him looked, and although they could not see anything more than the others, they said, like the emperor, "It is very beautiful." And all advised him to wear the new magnificent clothes at a great procession which soon would take place. "It is magnificent, beautiful, excellent," one heard them say. Everyone seemed to be delighted, and the emperor appointed two swindlers, the imperial court weavers. People should see that they were busy to finish the emperor's new suit. They pretended to take the cloth from the loom and worked about in the air with big scissors and sewed with needles without thread, and said at last, "The emperor's new suit is ready now." The emperor and all his barons then came to the hall. The swindlers held their arms up as if they held something in their hands and said, "These are the trousers, and this is the coat, and here is the cloak," and so on. And they are all as light as cobweb, and one must feel as if one has nothing at all upon the body, but that is just the beauty of them. "Indeed," said the statesman, but they could not see anything, for there was nothing to be seen. "Does it please your Majesty now to graciously undress," said the swindlers, "that we may assist your Majesty in putting on the new suit before the large looking-glass?" The emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put the new suit upon him, one piece after the other, and the emperor looked at himself in the glass from every side. "How well they look! How well they fit!" said all. "And what a beautiful pattern! What fine colors! That is a magnificent suit of clothes." The master of ceremonies announced that the bearer of the canopy, which was to be carried in the procession, the bearers of the canopy which was to be carried in the procession was ready. "I am ready," said the emperor. "Does not my suit fit me marvelously?" Then he turned once more to the looking-glass, and that people should think he admired his garments. The chamberlains who were to carry the train stretched their hands to the ground as if they lifted a train, and pretended to hold something in their hands. They did not like people to know that they could not see anything. The emperor marched in the procession under the beautiful canopy, and all who saw him in the street and out of the windows exclaimed, "Indeed, the emperor's new suit is incomparable. What a long train he has! How well it fits him!" Nobody wished to let others know he saw nothing, for then he would have been unfit for his office or too stupid. Never emperor's clothes were more admired. "But he has nothing on at all," said a little child at last. "Good heavens! Listen to the voice of an innocent child," said the father, and one whispered to the other what the child had said. "But he has nothing at all," cried at last the whole people. That made a deep impression upon the emperor, for it seemed to him that they were right. But he thought to himself, "Now I must bear up to the end," and the chamberlains walked with still greater dignity as if they carried the train which did not exist. Now, you may wonder why I'm reading you the story, and some of you may have twigged onto, and I've mentioned this in some of the talks I've done previously, but I think when it comes to our health, we're a bit like these people. we're too scared to say, this doesn't make any sense. You very often feel in your gut that what somebody's telling you doesn't make any sense. You're uncomfortable with it. Recently here in South Africa, there's one of these multitude of products that come into the country, and everybody runs off and goes and buys their health. And apparently these products cost at least 1,500 rand to buy the products. And I'm amazed that everybody runs off in that direction. Oh, but we've seen all the testimonies. All these people have been cured of cancer, and or this person's been cured of that. And I'm always would like to know what condition these people's health is like 6 months later and 6 years later. But the reason we run around from pillar to post and chasing after people and paying the money is because we kind of think we're too stupid. And we don't want to admit that, we don't want to challenge people because they use these big words. And, maybe I'm too stupid to know about health, and maybe this gut feel that I have, and maybe my common sense is not common sense at all, because for goodness sake, what do I actually know about health? Most people actually know quite a lot. And when you speak to people, I know when we speak about the natural way, and you listen to some of the testimonies today, they're going to say, but that is such common sense. And we've brought quite a few people. We've got 4 people today that are going to share their personal testimonies. And they'll tell you how long they've been following the program they've been doing, so that you can see that and everybody actually eats marginally different to the next person. They're all using similar principles, but they're not all eating exactly the same. So you can see that if you've got the right principles and you understand how your body works, you don't need to be conned by the swindlers that are out there. The health industry is enormous. It is huge. It is worth billions of dollars worldwide. And every 5 minutes there's another book and another product and another thing. And I'm not saying today that I'm right. I'm saying there are basic principles out there, and it's been wonderful to see over the years there are thousands of people around the world basically saying exactly what we're going to be telling you today. The most comprehensive nutritional research ever done in the world today, the China study, backs up everything we're going to be telling you today. And it's so rewarding to see that the top nutritional researchers, Professor Emeritus at Cornell University, Dr. Colin Campbell, has done years and years of study to show that basically what we're going to tell you today is really the truth. And the truth is simple enough for a small child or a poor uneducated person to not only understand but to afford. Anybody can afford to live this way. Just some of us may prefer to eat cashew nuts rather than saving the seeds inside our pumpkin as a good source of essential fats, for example. So, you can be poor and eat very well, but you just need to know the basics. You don't need to have money to be wealthy. We're in a wonderful venue to here today, and we've paid to come here, and we've got things to help you to make it easier because we live in the fast lane and we don't have time to stand and make our own juices in the morning or grow our own fruit and vegetables. So we've got some convenience things, but you don't need anything extra other than some common sense and some basic guidelines. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And before we go any further, I would like Samantha to come up and share her testimony. Now, the reason it worked for Samantha is quite fascinating, because if you look at all the research and you go into nutrition and you get into the sort of natural nutrition side, natural nutrition is what we promote is very different to what a dietitian, for example, would promote, which is very much based on what the food industry would like us to believe. It's kind of the story of the emperor's new clothes. For example, dietitians are taught at university that margarine is much better for you than butter. We will tell you that no, butter is better for you than margarine, because margarine is full of trans fatty acids and preservatives that can cause fetal damage and asthma attacks and urticaria. And these are things that I cover in my book. We're not going to have time to cover all of that today. But the natural nutrition approach, if you look at it and you look at all the research and probably go back the last 50, 60, even maybe even 100 years, one of the factors that has come into play every single time, and this is the foundation of natural living when it comes to your diet. And it's the very thing that I'm going to share with you now, that every time somebody's trying to sell you something, say, how does the acid-alkaline balance apply to what somebody's telling me now? Because when you look at the acid-alkaline balance in your body, you will be convinced. For example, when you look at any single diet, you'll say, what is the balance of acid-alkaline food? So we're going to be doing an exercise as well. There are some notes in your folder, so you don't have to be taking profuse notes. Don't read them, but you can go home and read them and go over them so that you are reminded of the information that I've given you here today. And of course, a lot of this is in my books, and I'll tell you which of the books covers it in great detail later on, okay? So when we're looking at the acid-alkaline balance, and it may just sound like a strange sort of, what does this acid-alkaline balance mean? I'm going to take you right back to the original sort of basic science you may have learnt at school. Do you remember the pH scale from school? Okay, the one end you've got 0, and the other end you've got 14, in the middle you've got 7. 0 to 7 is acid, 7 to 14 is alkaline. Just do that in different colors. Okay, what we do know from a physiological point of view, and you can go and buy any physiological textbook from a university bookshop, and it will tell you that the ideal pH for your blood, and I'm doing this in red, the ideal pH for your blood is 7,35 to 7,45. At that level, interestingly enough, they found that cancer cells don't multiply efficiently. Very difficult to get cancer cells to multiply. And cancer cells are basically just cells that have been damaged by a variety of things. Just consuming fried foods, for example, is a processed heated fat. You get the free radicals that form in that process, they get into the body and they start damaging cells. Now, if the pH of your blood keeps dipping below this, then the cancer cells can multiply very profusely. But if your pH of your blood is maintained beautifully over here all the time, cancer cells cannot multiply efficiently. And so what happens is, if you're able to maintain the acid-alkaline balance, you find that cancer cells don't multiply efficiently and your health improves. We also find that if you're maintaining the acid-alkaline balance over here, your brain works more efficiently. They've actually found children that have a more alkaline environment in the brain have higher IQs. So they found that the brain is more efficient, you think more clearly. They found that you convert fuel into energy more efficiently. So when you're maintaining this level, if you're eating a diet that follows the right acid-alkaline balance, you actually find if you've got excess weight, you lose it very easily. Or if you're underweight, you'll gain weight. So it just brings your body back to where it should be. So looking at Samantha, you've got to say, well, how do people recover from cancer by going on a raw diet? Because what they're doing is they're eating foods that are completely alkaline. Virtually all the foods they're putting into their diet, other than a couple of nuts and seeds, are marginally acidic. Does it mean we must live on raw fruit and vegetables for the rest of our life? No. No, don't panic, okay? I can see somebody saying, okay, I'm leaving during the break. I don't want to be a vegetarian. I don't want to live on peanuts and raisins, okay? I'm not saying that at all. It's about finding the balance. It's just that when you've got cancer, you've got to do something drastic. And we do with cancer. Samantha didn't come and see me. She went and saw another natural health consultant that actually used to live down the road from where I lived many years ago. And we never actually worked together, but we were basically teaching very similar principles. And Samantha went down, she said, you're going to go on the... And I remember Samantha telling me the story because your mother went into the consultation with you, didn't she? I mean, you were only 18. And the woman said to her, listen, you're going to have to actually go and you're going to have to live on raw fruit and vegetables to recover from this cancer. And her mother came out, and if I remember correctly, your mother basically turned to your father and said, Samantha's going to die. Because Samantha didn't eat fruit and vegetables. She lived on chocolates, if I remember correctly, and potato chips, and all the bad things, she said. She just lived on junk food like any normal teenager at that age, and she didn't eat fruit and vegetables, and she would never. She just refused to eat them. So, her mother was just convinced that that's it, Samantha's going to die because she's not going to eat fruit and vegetables. But Samantha's a very, very strong, mentally strong person. She said, if I'm going to live, I'm going to do it like that. And I'm always amazed at some people. I've seen people who have got children with cancer, and you tell them to go on raw food, and they're like, I can't do it. How am I going to live without bread? And it's not forever. It's just until you're well. And I'm like, well, you're probably not going to live if you don't change. So, you won't ever have bread ever again because you won't even be here. And I've been amazed at how some people will find every excuse under the sun not to make those choices. And I hope today you find reasons to not make excuses anymore. Because everybody's got an excuse. My husband was in the fast food industry. And he lived on junk food. And he thought muesli was horse food. I mean, he had white bread, I had whole wheat bread. He was the biggest junk food eater. And I've never met anybody like him. He'd wake up in the morning, his mother would shove a cup of coffee in his hand from when he was little. I grew up in a family where you weren't allowed tea and coffee till you were 13 because it's something that kids weren't given. So very different, upbringing. But to see this man just change, and he made those choices himself. As Samantha said with Colin. 8 antibiotics in a year and watching his wife like with loads of energy, and she's the one that's looking after the kids, you've got to get to a point where you say, oh, hold on a second, I'd like to wake up in the morning feeling great every day. I don't know about you, yeah. Oh, he had to change before you had kids. That's why your kids are so smart. I must tell you about her children. This Samantha was just telling me on Thursday. The little one's just been chosen, junior Springbok, SA champs, gymnastics, and he's 7 years old, and he's won medals. And I did a talk on Thursday night, and he was running up and down with these medals. And then in the same week, the little 4-year-old, she's turned to her brother and said, I'm going to win a trophy this week. I'm going to get a trophy. And he kind of looked at her probably like, how do you know you're going to get a trophy? And off she went to a little modeling school and a modeling competition at the age of 4. And she won the trophy for the modeling. And she modeled for me on Thursday night. She walked along like this, just a little thing like this. Okay, so getting back to acid-alkaline balance. How did this help Samantha? Because what she did is she literally bombarded her body with alkaline-forming foods, because she said if alkaline-forming foods are good for me, more are even better, and I'm going to go totally alkaline because I don't want another cancer cell to multiply in the body. The other thing about raw fruit and vegetables is it loads the body with antioxidants, and you need 2 things to fight cancer. You need to get your pH to a point where cancer cells can't multiply efficiently, and you need to load the body with antioxidants to destroy the cancer cells. Now, most people would want to go and take vitamin C in supplement form and think that that's an antioxidant that can destroy the cancer cells. But in fact, your best antioxidants in the most usable form, and just quickly, another quick lesson like this. If you're taking vitamin C in tablet form, it comes in that form. If you're taking it in an orange, it's bonded to a carbon molecule. And in this form, you can use 100% of it, up to 100%. And in this form, you can only use 4 to 10% of it. The other 90 to 96% of what you're taking in supplement form is going to strain your stomach and strain your kidneys, and is going to end up in the toilet. Now, I've always maintained that what you're needing is freshly extracted juices rather than taking tablets as a supplement. If you feel you need extra nutrition, take freshly extracted juices. It's one of the reasons I take the Barley Life, the Just Carrots, and I know Samantha takes them as well, and the Ready Beets, is because it's juices that have been extracted and then dried at room temperature without any enzyme destruction and put in powder form. And I was so grateful when I discovered this, because I didn't have to stand there juicing stuff all day long to get my extra nutrition. And I felt I needed extra nutrition because we're under a lot of stress. I mean, just driving here, you're on the roads sitting and getting stressed out. Am I going to get there on time? And this taxi doesn't want to move out of the way. And look at that idiot over there. I mean, don't you all drive along like this? My worst is, now that I'm so healthy and my brain is so clear, is to drive behind people that are like, I don't really know where I'm going, but I'm going. And I'm not putting my indicator on, but I'm going to turn and I'm going to stop suddenly. I mean, you have to drive so defensively because these people are out there, and I'm like, have another cup of coffee and wake up. Not that I have coffee, but I mean, they're just like half asleep. I think it's because they're all on tranquilizers and sleeping tablets, and the effect hasn't worn off. Either that, or they're like on caffeine and they're like so busy. Sue had somebody bump into the back of her car the other day, and the guy just leapt out and started verbal abuse. She said like she hadn't heard in her life for about half an hour, and she said she was actually terrified. Anyway, he did apologize, I believe, after your husband got hold of him. All right, so this is the reason we don't promote vitamin supplementation, but we're not going to go there right now. What we're trying to do is maintain the acid-alkaline balance of our blood so that we can have this incredible health. Because today we're talking about perfect health. Can it be attained? And I want to tell you that for the last 20 years, our family, I have 3 daughters, 4 grandchildren, haven't had a doctor's bill due to ill health. And I'm not boasting about it, I'm just telling you this. I know that Samantha, when did you last have a doctor's bill due to ill health? Janine, when did your family last have a doctor's bill due to ill health? You have how many children?
3.
When was the last time you had ill health?
In April it was 4 years.
In April it was 4 years. Sue Burnham King, anybody else want to tell us? When was the last time your family got ill and you had a doctor's bill? I mean, you get to a point where you can't remember it. You're talking to somebody who used to go every week with one of my kids, and I was sitting there getting an antibiotic. And I got to the point where I started thinking, I'm not going to accept this anymore. Nothing's working. I'm taking this stuff. I'm paying this money, but my children keep getting sick with ear infections, tonsillitis. My husband lived on antacid medication, and nobody's getting well. We're just getting worse. We just accept stuff because everybody else is like the emperor's new clothes. Everybody else says that that's how it's done, and you go to the doctor, and I'm not saying we don't need doctors. When I'm in a car accident, I need a doctor. But if you've got a headache or a pain somewhere, ask yourself why. Don't always want to treat the symptom with some kind of medication. And if you are very attached to your medication, go home and read the side effects. Take the insert out. If you've lost the insert or it wasn't in there, get onto the internet, go into Google and just type side effects and the name of the drug. And you'll get 100 sites telling you what the side effects of that drug is, okay? Don't just accept that there's nothing you can do about it. I was reading a little booklet that Sue picked up. It was quite nice laid out on the blood pressure that you get from Dischem. The introduction by John Cleese, and he's into all of this with this doctor, and they're writing all these books because, you know, there's money in the health industry. So I read this book, and it's like nice information about blood pressure. It gets to a point that said blood pressure, high blood pressure is incurable. You have to live on medication for the rest of your life. Now, how many of you have corrected your blood pressure by changing your diet? Is there anybody here today? Yes, Mark has. Mark, at the age of 19, his blood pressure was 160 over 110. They said, we cannot insure you. You're uninsurable because your parents are both on blood pressure medication. And Samantha said it. She said, genetics will load the gun, but the food you put in your mouth will pull the trigger. So Mark has a predisposition because of his parents and his grandparents for high blood pressure, but his blood pressure now in his mid-50s is 115 over 75 and doesn't go up. And in fact, when he has medicals for insurance, they say they've never seen a man of his age that is so fit and so healthy. That we've never seen blood pressure like this in a man your age. Okay. So getting back to acid alkaline, how are we going to get the acid alkaline level to where it should be? Everything you read says that you should be following a diet that is at least 75% alkaline forming. That's a minimum, okay? A minimum. And a maximum of 25% acid forming. So now, basically all your fresh fruit and all your vegetables are alkaline forming, some nuts are alkaline forming, and 1 or 2 grains and potatoes. Now you're going to say, is that all? Your most alkaline forming food are your dark green leafy vegetables, and the most alkaline forming food that I know that I can eat is actually barley grass. Now I don't have the time to grow it and stand and cut it, so I take the powder. That's one of the reasons I do take it. Let's take a look at what the normal average South African eats on a daily basis. What do you wake up in the morning and have when you open your eyes? I know Mark used to have coffee, so I'll put down coffee. And in that was milk and sugar. Anything else? Anybody else? Tea maybe? Tea? We're talking pre-natural way. How many of you here, by the way, are actually been following the natural way for any period of time? Okay, great. Right. What else is a normal South African breakfast? Toast. And on that you'd put some margarine. What else goes on the toast? Some cheese. You're all so shy. Come on, where's the eggs, the bacon? Didn't you used to eat these things? My husband's favorite was like bully beef with tomato and onions in it on toast and omelets with cheese in it and all kinds of things. What else? Okay, eggs, bacon, baked beans, cereal, and in the cereal we'd put milk, and we'd have some sugar, grilled tomato. Funnily enough, a grilled tomato is acid forming. Grilled tomato, the fresh one would be an alkaline forming. All right, it's mid-morning, you're in the office. What are you going to eat or drink? Just shout out. Coffee, some more coffee. What else? Toasted sandwich, somebody said. Chocolate muffin. Somebody is being honest. Thank you. Well, this is not a church, and this is not the church of health, okay? We're all, and if it was, we would all be food sinners, okay? We're all, I'm the worst of them all. I was the one that used to drink a tin of condensed milk for breakfast. I was an absolute sugarholic. Don't think any of you could be worse than that. Although I did meet a woman once that said she ate chocolate cake every morning for breakfast. Right. What was a normal lunch in a normal South African home or in the office? Hamburger and chips. Yep. And because it's fried, chips. Come on, anybody else? Coke. Sandwiches. Big Mac. KFC. Now some pizzas. All right, mid-afternoon, what would you normally eat? Chocolate. Coffee. What was that? Chips. What's a normal supper in a normal South African family? Rice, vlees, and the aardappels. It depends on how the aardappels are made. If the potatoes are baked, we would put them here. Poor old potato has been so maligned with his glycemic index. Don't eat potatoes, the glycemic index is high. How many people eat plain boiled potatoes with nothing else? No, you put some butter or oil in it. The minute you put any fat or anything with the potato, you lower the glycemic index. It's the most ridiculous thing ever brought out is the glycemic index. It's just another way to make us feel stupid, like we'll just accept their information. Just this, you're in there and you're thinking, I'm just figuring out how to eat, and they come along with something else again. Now I've got to look at the glycemic index chart, and in the pasta, spaghetti has a lower glycemic index or rate at which glucose is absorbed into the body than spiral-shaped pasta. Go figure that one out. But we're too scared to question. We like the people. We like these statesmen in the Emperor's New Clothes. We don't want to question in case we look stupid. So, I mean, like, I just grew up, like, being one of these people that would say, and I'm very skeptical, and I would say, why? So I said to some dietitians, why is there a difference between the pastas? Oh, they said the glycemic index is just a tool we use to educate the public. You know, these stupid people, that's what they actually mean. It's not infallible and it's not 100% accurate. It's just a tool. It's a tool used, as far as I'm concerned, by the sugar industry to make sugar look good, because sugar came up smelling like roses on that glycemic index. Simply because refined sugar, you only need 50 grams of sugar to get 50 grams of carbohydrates, because it's pure carbohydrates. That's a tablespoon. Anybody can eat that. But to get 50 grams of carbohydrates out of pineapple, you've got to eat 3 pineapples. So in the laboratory, they gave people 3 pineapples to eat. By the time you finish the first one, your tongue is sore. By the time you finish the second one, it's bleeding. The third one, you're actually crying. And now your blood sugar's up here because you're in pain. And just, you know, you're upset. And that's what happens is when you're in pain, your blood sugar goes up. So they don't eat the pineapple. The glycemic index is too high, but the refined sugar is fine. And you're like thinking, huh? Go figure that one out. Oh, they're but smarter than me. They obviously know more than I do. Stop thinking like that. I'll tell you now, there's nobody out there other than probably Dr. Colin Campbell. And he is the least arrogant of any of the people I've ever spoken to in my life. I've spoken to the man personally. I email him frequently. He is the most humble man I've ever met. Professor Emeritus of Nutritional Biochemistry at Cornell University. I've never met such a humble man. But any little pipsqueak out there is the most arrogant. They do a little course or a little degree here or a little something else. They work for a big company. They're unbelievably arrogant. I cannot believe it. I often see these young dietitians leave university and they're unbelievably arrogant. They're working for the Vitamin Information Bureau and they know everything and they're like 23. And we go and we'll have a debate or a discussion and somebody says, why didn't you just punch them? Because you can hear they're unbelievably arrogant. And I said, no, God is just waiting to bless them with children and then they'll see what the sugar does to the children. That'll humble. Nothing like children to humble you. Nothing like children to humble you. Your kids wake up in the morning and they look at you and they say, that dress looks disgusting, take it off. My grandchildren do it to me. Stephen will do it to me. When I'm at home and I'm kind of switched off and I'm mowing the lawn and my hair's naturally curly, I'm in my gardening tracksuit. He'll actually look at me and say, Mia, I don't like those clothes. You need to go and put some smart clothes on. All right, so for supper we're having rice, flakes, and potatoes. What else are we having? And if you're English and you're from another nation, it's rice and meat, or rice and meat. Okay, what else are we going to have? Spaghetti bolognese, okay? Spaghetti. Bolognese. Lasagna. What kind of soup? Nice veggie soup. Royco. Minute noodles. I'm never sure whether it's 1 minute, 2 minute, or 3 minute, whatever it is. Okay. My son-in-law, Jason, I remember him telling me that he actually lived on those 2-minute noodles for like 3 years while he was studying to be an accountant. And when my daughter met him, he had like eczema all over his cheeks and he was in a bad way. And within a couple of weeks, eczema had cleared up, and a couple of months later, he'd lost 12 kilograms, and she's still working on him, and every day he improves. It's amazing to actually see how, they're married, and he just, you go out with Jason, it's like Colin. The men actually get more fanatical than the woman once they've felt the benefits of actually waking up in the morning with so much energy you don't know what to do with it. It's probably why my daughter has 3 children, all under the age of 3. All right, what comes after supper? All right, let's go. Pudding. We've got ice cream. Maybe a glass of whiskey and a cup of coffee. Right. What percentage of this diet is written in red? So the average South African diet is probably 99% acid forming. But even if it was a good balance and you were following a balanced diet like I used to eat, I used to have muesli with plain yogurt, never sweetened, no preservatives in it, homemade muesli. And in the middle of the morning, I would have Provita with cheese. And at lunchtime, I would have my homemade whole wheat bread with some cottage cheese or maybe some lettuce and tomato. And in the middle of the afternoon, I'd maybe snack on a piece of fruit if I really didn't want to feel guilty, because fruit is so fattening. You know how fattening fruit is because it's loaded with sugar. Aren't we all taught that, okay? So by the time I got to like just after mid-afternoon, and I kind of didn't really know what to eat anymore, that's when I started looking for like sticky sweet stuff. And that's when I got into making fudge. And I used to make my own marshmallows. Can you believe it? Anybody ever made marshmallows? I used to make marshmallows and roll them in roasted coconut. And every time I mention this, my husband says, "And when are you going to make them again?" I'm trying to figure out how to do it with fructose. I haven't quite got it right. All right. So even having a salad with your supper, if you followed the sort of what's called the prudent diet, you'd be eating a 75% acid-forming diet. Now, why is it so important? Let me explain to you. Is alkaline-forming foods, your fruit and vegetables are very high in alkaline minerals, magnesium, potassium, calcium, sodium. Those are alkaline minerals. They're low in acid minerals, sulfur and phosphorus. We need to maintain the balance in our bloodstream, and the way your body does that, if you're eating a high acid-forming diet like this, typical South African diet, your body's going to dip into the bloodstream every 5 minutes. Every time you eat, it's going to be dipping, it's going to be trying to correct it firstly in the bloodstream. Then, because it can't do that, because there's too much sulfur and phosphorus coming in, it's going to go and fetch alkaline minerals from your mineral warehouse. Where do we store all our minerals in our body? Your bones, yes, in your bones. So it goes and fetches it from your bones. And the first sign that your acid-alkaline balance is out of balance is that you start needing fillings, because the first area you start to really lose it from is the jaw, and it starts to affect the teeth. And most of us have got fillings in our teeth at some point in our lives. And then it gets further into the skeleton, so that by the time most of us are sort of in our 60s, we've developed osteoporosis to a certain degree, and it's considered normal to get osteoporosis. I've met 22-year-olds with severe osteoporosis. And we're seeing people at younger and younger ages, because when I grew up in the 1950s and 60s, we had a lot more alkaline-forming foods. We were the kids that grew up that would eat raw beans straight out of the vegetable garden when we walked past, somebody else's property. There were no fences in that day, and there would be veggie garden here, and there'd be beans growing on the vegetables. We'd walk past, and we'd pick some beans and munch them on the road down on the way home back from school. But it's very different. We live in a different society. Children need to get picked up because of safety reasons and dropped off, and mommy picks them up, and they have an ice cream or a chocolate in the car, or they stop at McDonald's on the way home. And so it's a very different kind of environment. So we're starting to see the result of this. We're starting to see that one of the major causes of death in children today is cancer. Major cause. I met a little boy, 2 years old, probably about 10 or 12 years ago, 2 years old, colon cancer. The father was an actuary. Actuaries are people that find accounting too exciting. Now, they are so clever with figures, they become actuaries and earn huge amounts of money, okay? They're brilliant. They're just very, very good with numbers and figures, and they work for big insurance companies, and they work out all the risks and banks and things like that, and all these permutations and everything. The mother was a psychologist. Both very degreed people. And what were they feeding the little boy? Vienna sausages and coffee. Coffee in his bottle and Vienna sausages. And I said, well, why is he eating like this? Because that's all he wants to eat. Now when, pray tell me, did a 2-year-old dictate to his parents what he should be eating? I said, I'll help you on condition that the whole family changes the way they eat, which they did. And the little boy recovered, but this was this little 2-year-old that had chemo, had lost all his hair, totally changed the way he ate, got his diet to be more alkaline forming, and the whole family benefited from it. So just because you are well off or educated, there's this perception that if you have money and education, you're going to make better choices, especially when it comes to your nutrition. But in fact, I've seen a lot of poor, uneducated people making better choices. And if you look worldwide, the highest incidence of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes are amongst the most educated, most well-off people. All right, so we're now going to get you to do some work. You have paper in front of you, and what I would like you to do is, for the next basically half an hour, quickly fill this out. Well, we're first going to do this one thing. Just quickly jot down on your piece of paper your normal breakfast, your normal mid-morning, your normal stuff that you eat, like it is now. Anybody want to guess? Just quickly on the back of one of the sheets there, just jot it down, or on your assessment form you can fill it in. Here, previous and present diet. You don't have to do both. You can just do present if you want to. If you're wanting results, if your diet's fantastic and you just came along to support us and you know all of this stuff, then just write down your wonderful diet. But if you're wanting to get help, on your one-page health assessment form, write down what you're eating. What do you have when you wake up in the morning? What do you eat for breakfast, mid-morning, lunch, mid-afternoon, supper, after supper? If you don't know whether it's acid-forming or alkaline, what I want you to do is circle the things that you think are acid-forming so that you're learning yourself, okay? If you don't know, just put your hand up and say, is meat acid or alkaline forming? Are knickknacks acid or alkaline forming? They're both acid forming, by the way. Can you do this? Do you understand what I'm saying? Some of you are just putting your heads down. You didn't know you were going to work today, did you? Do you want to ask any questions? As we do this, you can ask questions. We need...
Marianne, juvenile diabetes.
Yes.
I've got someone I'm trying to work with that, and she keeps coming back to me and saying, yeah, but what's the GI? What's the GI?
Oh. It is so difficult when you, as a natural health consultant, are trying, or somebody who's just, you know what you're doing with nutrition, help somebody who's brainwashed into this whole GI thing. Because they are taught you've got to be looking at the GI thing all the time. It's a difficult one, because you've got to sit it down, and it's part of the reasons why with the natural health consultants, I tell them to get people to read the natural way first before they actually come to us, so that they have an understanding of what our approach is to nutrition. Then they understand, but if they come in with a dietetics or a media approach, which is a GI approach, that's what she's going to continually ask you. Probably the best book to get to explain juvenile diabetes and the causes and how you can help her is a book called The China Study.